Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Pennsylvania Press Club. I'm Francine Schertzer, president of the Press Club and your host for today's luncheon. Joining me at the head table is Kelly Thompson of PSCA and David Patty from Customers Bank. Thank you for your support and thank you for being here. The Pennsylvania Press Club Luncheon Series could not be possible without the support of the generous organizations listed on our sponsor banner. Today's luncheon is being taped and will be carried throughout Pennsylvania to the television audience of PCN. Our speaker today is Secretary of Education Khalid Mumin. For over 25 years, Dr. Khalid Mumin has served in various capacities as a teacher, dean of students, principal, and central administrator. Most recently, Dr. Mumin served as superintendent of schools at Lower Merion School District. Prior to Lower Merion, Dr. Mumin was superintendent of Reading School District for 7 years. Beginning as a secondary English teacher for Scotland, Pennsylvania in 1997, Dr. Mumin rose through the leadership ranks of the education system in Pennsylvania. Dr. Mumin is committed to promoting and sustaining student achievement, equity, and access to educational programming for all students, as well as creating plans that are fiscally responsible. He's been recognized nationally as a school board savvy superintendent and is the author of a book entitled Problem Child: Leading Students Living in Poverty Toward Infinite Possibilities of Success. Dr. Mumin earned a Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership from the University of Pennsylvania, a Master of Education in Teaching and Curriculum from Pennsylvania State University, a Bachelor of Arts in Secondary English Education from Shippensburg University, and an Associate of Arts in English from Northeastern Christian Junior College. At this time, I'd like to welcome Secretary Mumin.
Thank you. That was all good until she said 1997, my first time in the classroom. But thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be here today to share some time with you. And to have the opportunity to catch up with old friends in the room. And as we're here to talk about education today, I will let you know, people ask, how was your weekend? I got asked that a couple of times a day, so I'm gonna get that out of the way right now. My weekend was bad. It was good leading up into the Sixers game yesterday, when I was at the Wells Fargo Center, doing my very best as a Philadelphia fan, giving it to the Knicks fans who were about 75% in attendance. And something happened the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. They woke up and they became active and they threw me out of the Wells Fargo Center. I got thrown out by Knicks fans. Not a good look. So I told them, I said, don't worry, we'll take it out on the Mets. So that's where we're going with it. But thank you again for having me today. I am the Secretary of Education, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to join you here today. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about PDE and our role here as an agency in the state. We're going to talk about some of the investments of the administration, which I know you're very interested in. And of course, we're going to leave some time for some Q&A. So, basically at the Pennsylvania Department of Education, our mission is to ensure that all learners from all walks of life have access to world-class education, an education that will prepare them for whatever their future looks like. And I put emphasis on the word whatever, because education, for those of us who were educated in the 1900s like I was, education looks a lot different. The careers and pathways are a lot different now. To reach that mission, we are mindful of the connections at play with our deputates. And in full disclosure, I've been in education a long time, 27 years, and I've never used the word deputate until I became the Secretary of Education. Just being honest. But as public servants and the stewards of education in the Commonwealth, we are working each day to shape public policy and drive strategic investments and resources where they need to go. Those conversations right now, as I speak, they're happening right now. at PDE and also over in the Capitol. There are several hearings that are going on this week, and our team is actively engaged. All of this has to do with how do we find the bridge between policy and practice to have meaningful experiences for our learners here in the Commonwealth. And I'm talking about 1.7 million learners. So whether that is a $30 million investment or increase to help pre-K, the pre-K workforce, a $5 million increase to student-teacher stipend programs under PHEA, Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, or a $5 million increase for teacher professional development. We're talking about investments such as the $1.1 billion investment in basic education funding for Pennsylvania school districts distributed through the BEF. Now, the basic ed funding formula. So as we talk about that and we say historic, everything is the best, the first, or historic. So let me break down historic for you. Years ago, and if hopefully you weren't looking up at the head table, you were enjoying your colleagues around the table, I was able to have a conversation with one of my good friends, Dave Patty, and we talked about the basic ed funding formula. When we worked hand in hand in a community in Berks County where we were advocating for a funding formula, The investment then was $350 million. And we said, this is great. This is great, but we have to continue to feed the formula and look at how it's fluid and it can get better. So last year, the investment was $567 million, which was historic. This year, with $1.1 billion, yes, that's historic, but some of the things that Dave and I were talking about will be addressed with this investment. So it's an $872 million investment, which will be a first-year adequacy investment as recommended by the bipartisan BEFC. So that's the Basic Ed Funding Commission. And $200 million will be distributed through the Basic Ed Funding formula with recommended updates to reduce volatility and improve predictability and stability. Now, what does that mean? When we looked at the original formula back in 2014, it was a $350 million investment in a formula itself. There are areas of hold harmless that were baked into that formula. When we moved to the $567 million investment, we still are holding $567 million. We're still working through the traditional hold harmless pieces. So we're talking about volatility in regards to, and this is a powerful number. We have 500 school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. 367 of them have an adequacy gap. 500, 367. That's why the need for this investment is so important to address volatility. The $200 million is a term that you may have heard before, which is now being baked into the formula, which is level up dollars. Level up dollars. So in the past, it was 350 and 200 and level up. Now, this is a formula that brings legislators and the agency back together to talk about volatility on a scheduled basis, which is necessary. Or is it the investment in the governor's blueprint for higher education? As we know, and the governor has been very vocal about this, whereas we have some very difficult numbers to try to grasp. One of them is that we are 49th in the nation, 49 out of 50 that is, in the nation in how we invest in our institutions of higher education. And then we are 48th in regards to cost efficiency. Not good. So the governor's proposal brings together the PASHE system, that's our state schools, which I'm a proud graduate of one of them, Shippensburg University, and brings us together with the 15 community colleges to create a governance system so that we can adequately fund the university systems as well as in being hopeful in reducing costs. So as we're looking at the changing landscape in education, by examining the needs of students and educators across the Commonwealth, There are a lot of changes that are happening pre-K to post-secondary and create the conditions that will uplift Pennsylvanians for decades to come. So how does that look? Now I have to step back and think of this through the lenses of an educator and the lenses of a student. Now, in full disclosure, the title of my book was mentioned, and it's pretty accurate. Problem child, I know somebody about it, that really had that moniker as problem child. His name rhymes with Khalid, could be Khalid. I'm a gentleman who loved ninth grade so much, I did it twice. And I grew up in Philadelphia, went to Olney High, and if anyone knows anything about the city of Philadelphia and the demographics, you're looking at a section where I grew up in called Logan. Logan and Hunting Park is the most underserved communities in the city of Philadelphia. It's been that way since 1974. So what happened? I had a teacher, Mr. Dick Smith, who told me I was smart. He actually was saying things to me that my parents were saying to me, but I believed him. And I believed Coach Evans, okay? I believe Coach Evans, and I believe my guidance counselor and Dr. Smith, the English chairperson. And I said, I want to become a teacher. I went off to school, didn't have a financial pot, and I went and I figured out the assessments. I said, oh boy, SAT, I can't go to St. Bonaventure. I'm gonna have to go to junior college. And that's how my story took off. Now think of it from an educator's vantage point. The educator, the work that Mr. Smith was doing to keep me interested and invested in learning, I don't know how he did it. He was talking about rap music. He was comparing rap music to William Shakespeare, and like, this doesn't make any sense. And he was coming to school with his own resources. Didn't understand what that meant until I became an educator and said, wow, we have to do a better job of funding our schools. We have to do a better job. All teachers don't, many of my colleagues that I've had friends years ago who were in the profession and out, they didn't have the same supports I had in regards to professional development and mentorship. We have to do something about that. And the most powerful piece, which is important for this dialogue today, we need teachers. That didn't exist when I was around. We had so many teachers and certifications granted by the state. Now we have a true shortage. So in my office, in my agency, by statute, I have a chief talent officer who's engaging in this work for us to try to close the gap. And we don't want to talk about this is a national gap or national phenomenon. That's out here. I'm concerned about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and Ray is working on that. Ray Fields is working on that, again, as we speak. There's a hearing on this week also for teacher retention that's happening this week. We also have to look at, and these are conversations, and Dave, I'm sorry, because it's like you know everything I'm about to say. We've had conversations where we have 9 non-teaching professionals in our buildings. Some of them become interested in education. They are part of the community. We have to create a VIP section for them. We have to create a VIP section for them to be able to step into these roles as prominent educators. So through Pennsylvania's professional grant program, $1.5 million in grant funding is available to expand and establish opportunities for practicing paraeducators to become special education teachers at no cost while actively learning and working in their school. That's a tough one. There's great strength, especially when we are able to have professionals within our buildings that we see. That's the most authentic job interview. We see them every day. We know that they're engaged in the communities. They love the students. We have to continue to create pathways where they are interested in taking on roles as full-time teachers. So this one is tough for me to talk about because when I was an educator, I was on one side of the street. Now I'm on the other side of the street here in Harrisburg, and I'm talking about professional development. We know, and I know personally, there are professional development opportunities that we miss in our schools. Professional development opportunities on June 29th aren't effective. Okay? We have to take a more overt approach in offering professional development that matters, that maps onto the needs of our students. For example, and this is a daunting task, here's another word I learned, but not in the agency. I learned this as a superintendent. Say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a creative. What? What is that? I want to be a gamer. Like video games? Like a gamer? These careers are changing fast and furious. We have students who are interested in the trades. It's not like the trades when I was in Alney High School, where I was poised to work similar to my father in Local 332, Sam Statons Union, as a laborer and a carpenter. I've been visiting programs where students now aren't simply locked into sheetrock and wood. They're doing everything. The electricity, the plumbing, the carpentry, because the careers of the future are expansive. So when I think about this, and this is a challenge and a call to action for you, similar to how I speak to my colleagues and my team in the agency, having the head and heart alignment and the confidence to understand we are preparing students and learners for a future that we may not know of. You know, we're looking at trends, we're looking at research, we're looking at data. So education, this is so non-traditional, so education has to take a spin off of tradition and into innovation. AI being one thing. How do we approach AI? I'm a 1900s baby, okay? Remember when the internet first came out and you sent your first email and it went and you called your friend on the phone and said, "Did you get my email?" "Yeah, I got your email." 5 minutes later, we are living in a time where things are happening in the now. So the key and the goal and my ask of you is that you continue to partner with us at the agency. Governor Shapiro was very poised, very honest with me, and he answered my questions with great authenticity when I said this is a time where the practitioner pieces around education have to be elevated. Yes, policy exists, it must exist, but it has to have a practitioner spin, practitioner involvement and connection, because the practitioners are the closest in the buildings to meeting the students' needs. My ask of you is to continue this collaboration, because we need you. Because as I'm talking about education, you're going to tell me how businesses are becoming more innovative. You're going to say our students need these things in our schools to make an impact or be prepared. And this is cliche. We have to continue to come together as one because the future depends on us. Those young learners that I see in our pre-K classes, all the way up to our college students whose average age is 26 years old here in the Commonwealth, they are the future. So they need to have flexible pathways where they're on-ramps and off-ramps and on-ramps and off-ramps and on-ramps and off-ramps, so that we can have a better future here in the Commonwealth. So thank you so much for allowing me some time to share pieces of the financial vision, pieces of the vision of the agency, and I'm here for, as long as you need me, for Q&A. So again, thank you so much.
How much is a past Lifeline Scholarship Program part of an early budget negotiation, and should we expect such a program to be part of the budget deal?
Great question. Thank you. First and foremost, as you know, and Governor Shapiro is very vocal about this, we have the only divided legislator in the United States of America. So there's a good thing. And I'm looking at the sides in regards to optimism. You cannot get anything done without the House and the Senate. So it allows for communication. The governor has been very clear that he supports a past scholarship program, but not at the detriment of traditional public schools. My understanding is that those conversations are still happening. The door is not closed on it. So those negotiations and conversations are happening at the governor's office level with our legislators.
Has work on the higher education plan gotten far enough along for it to be introduced into the legislation? When will we see that, and what are the greatest obstacles that stand in the plan's way?
I'm very hopeful. Once again, as the governor announced at his budget address that the higher ed system is broken and we have to do something about it. And the 49th, the language around the 49th in this area and the 49th in that area is something that has been communicated and accepted. Again, I mentioned that there are a lot of hearings this week, and one of them is the Senate House hearing on education, and it's the higher ed blueprint. And the Senate put out a blueprint in regards to the blueprint that the administration has put out. To me, that means the door is open for communication to create a plan that works for the learners here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm hopeful. And this is where this Pennsylvania pride comes in. No one likes talking about 49 and 48. There are pride points there, one. Two, is it a real problem? Yes, we all recognize the problem. This isn't an exercise or a Socratic seminar type of exercise. There's going to be very intense and spirited debate around this to come up with a plan that works for our learners here in the Commonwealth.
Recently, just this week, another school faced significant concerns about the safety of their students due to harassment on gender, race, etc. What are steps the administration can take to proactively address this moving forward?
Yes. One, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, professional development is key. And supporting our educators in the classrooms and in the buildings and our administrators so they have the tools necessary to address needs around bullying and harassment. Secondly, offering opportunities with my administrative team at PDE, how we're going out to support districts when they come up against these issues. Presently, we have an issue, unfortunately, that comes through once or twice a week. And our job is to be responsive to the educators, especially the administrators, to understand how to address these issues. How do we get to a point of support, full support? It's going to take an entire community around this. It's not simply, school and student. It's school, student, parents, business partners working together on these issues. Because again, there are 500 school districts here in the Commonwealth, and there's not one that's the same. The communities are different. So it's going to take efforts, again, with the agency being as a technical support agency, helping our administrators and providing the resources for our educators to be able to combat some of these issues. Lastly, and I'll be remiss if I didn't say this, I mentioned this earlier in my comments, we are faced with a future that's unknown. Oh, Casey moved my phones. I have 2 cell phones and an iPad and a laptop and a desktop. Our students are getting things in the now. And we have to continue to provide professional development and how do what are these triggers and the information we're sharing that we're able to combat some of this school safety, some of these school safety issues. But it takes a village.
How is the administration ready to better support school boards from political concerns?
Right now, we have and I'm going to make sure I'm not using too many acronyms here, and these are acronyms I learned. We have groups of administrators, school boards. We have associations. We call them the P groups. So PSEA, PSBA, PASA, they're called P groups. So what we're doing when we're working with PSBA, Pennsylvania School Boards Association, again, we're there as a support to provide technical support and information and professional development as necessary. One of the things about education, which is very interesting, I use a term, and I have some friends in the room, and they know I talk about this all the time. There's one level which I call apolitical and P-political. Apolitical is the area where educators are equipped and confident to navigate between the margins as necessary to get the resources and the attention for their learners and their environment, all 500. P-political, that's legislation. That's legislation. And so the nuance between that, P sits here and A sits here. School boards should be apolitical, working with their local school districts. You know, this part up here, that's not controlled by us. You know, there has to be understanding, and I know it is an understanding, that our school boards have understandings of the communities that they serve. And we have to continue, similar to the practitioner approach, let them lead. Let them lead. And so that's how we approach it. More development, professional development, and information is necessary.
In 100 years, we've gone from teaching Latin and Greek in high school to teaching remedial English in college. Why?
Great question. I don't have an answer for that. I think that, again, and I'm going back with my researcher's lens, when I think of, the democracy of education, 1916, John Dewey. The challenge now when looking at innovation and preparing young people for the futures ahead of them and providing them with the freedom to chart their own course, at times the way that the structure or the structural components of education look a lot like 1916. That is the challenge, to continually change and evolve, and working with legislators to continually evolve policy, working with educators within our agency so that we can continually evolve to understand what our students need to be competitive in a global society and, of course, locally and nationally.
What is the average graduation rate for charter schools? Do charter schools take the PSSAs, and if so, how do they perform?
Oh, wow. I don't have the data. Right off the top of my head in regards to percentages for, you said cybers or?
Yes.
For cyber schools. I don't have that data at hand, so I won't be able to speak with authenticity around that. However, I will say, because this, before I arrived, this is something that we always talked about with charters, cyber, brick and mortar charters in public schools. The Governor Shapiro, has been very clear that charter schools are public schools. So, that takes a lot of fire out of the discussion around school choice, as the first question was around vouchers. So therefore, they are part of our makeup here in the agency and here in the Commonwealth. So I'll come back to you with the data, but I just wanted to be very, very intentional in saying they are our students.
Most cyber charter schools are operating with expired charters. Does the department plan to work on renewing these charters or allow them to operate with expired charters indefinitely?
Great question, thank you. So currently, part of my position, I am on the Charter Appeals Board, the CAB. And these are conversations that are happening at the CAB level in regards to examining of charters. And for the first time, I can say since I was a superintendent in the Reading School District back in 2012, this is the first time that we've had a full CAB, which again, dialogue and discussion are happening around all of these issues. Now, first point of business. The first point of business is they are handling dockets as they come up. Once there is a schedule of addressing those dockets, the conversation will again accelerate in regards to expired charters and things of that nature. From an agency standpoint, this is my other hat. I've been in discussions with leaders of charter schools, and the door is open for the discussion. The door is open for the discussion. We can't get everything we want overnight. So to go in and say, your charter's expired, you're done, your charter's, no. It opens the door for more dialogue and discussion around these things. We essentially, especially since the pandemic, it's like education, had to go back to the starting line. And that's not a bad thing, because now we're able to reimagine and re-envision education for the future. So they're part of the discussion.
Data has shown for decades that money alone cannot fix schools. With all these historic investments in K-12 education, how can we require schools to be accountable and turn those taxpayer dollars into improved academic outcomes for students?
Great question. And part of that is, business term, return on investment. And that is, you'll hear that term a lot coming up in educational planning for us, especially with our administration. First and foremost, the obvious is graduation rates, and where are the students going from the 12th grade space? Are they going into our workforce? Are they going into the military? Are they going on to our 2-year and 4-year schools? Next step. Last step, most important step, are they re-entering our workforce, or are they entering our workforce and staying here in the Commonwealth? So the discussions around return on investment are important. There's one thing that I did not say intentionally. It can't be based simply on assessments. Assessments in a tax bill don't mean anything. So the return on investment has to be how our graduates are entering the workforce in the Commonwealth, and are they staying? Are they staying? And we want to make sure that we have appealing options for them to stay here in the Commonwealth and develop the next set of learners, the next set of leaders in our Commonwealth.
Has the administration considered the Republican Party's proposed Grow PA plan yet, and what are your thoughts?
The proposed?
Grow PA?
Yes.
And has the administration considered this proposal, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yes. Right now, the discussions are open. And being very, again, and I'm trying my best to channel my inner Governor Josh Shapiro, because I'm like, he took my lines, because I said these things when I came up through the agency. We are open for business and dialogue and discussion. There's no way. I think the most fearful thing that we should be concerned about, especially in our Commonwealth. If someone says this is one way or the highway, it's not going to work. You have to be open for discussion and continued dialogue, and that's yes.
What are your thoughts on Philadelphia Mayor Parker's picks for the Board of Education and potentially rescinding Joyce Wilkerson's nomination?
Wow. I've been reading that in the news like everyone else. I don't have an opinion on the board members. I do have an opinion in support of Mayor Parker. I talk to Mayor Parker often. I understand her passion and purpose in regards to what she wants to do with the education system, i.e. the School District of Philadelphia. Just as recent as last week, I had a conversation with her, and my goodness, and Mayor Parker, when you see her with her energy and things on the camera, that's Mayor Parker 100% of the time. And we had a spirited discussion about students like me, little Khalid growing up in Philadelphia, and so I have great confidence in her vision and what she wants to do. The school board itself, that's a local decision. It's a mayoral decision. I don't have a comment on the candidates, but again, I do have great confidence in Mayor Parker's approach and how she wants to approach the issues of students learning in the city of Philadelphia.
Will you call for more money to be put into the student teacher stipend program given the high demand?
That, I heard that round of applause, the last question answered, and the round of applause wasn't for me, but I think that I'm hearing that round of applause in my mind because I believe the legislators, as the proposal went out and the legislators supported the dollar amount, and it was gone in 9 minutes. 9 minutes. That means that one, yes, we saw a problem, we're addressing the problem, and there's a need to do more. Those discussions, I believe, are going to become more fruitful, and that's coming from the agency FIA, will become more fruitful with the legislators. And I believe that they have open ears and open minds to this. For me, selfishly, as the leader of PDE, that see this type of response, I'm like, okay, we have an opportunity to address this teacher shortage down the line. I'm constantly recruiting, so I'm hopeful, and I think the legislators are open to the dialogue.
Can the administration guarantee no public funds go to religious charter schools?
The word guarantee is tough. I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't box myself into a guarantee. However, again, the discussions are open right now in regards to the legislators working with the administration.
How does the administration expect to respond to the funding issues related specifically to the Allegheny County assessments? I'll try one more time.
Yeah.
How does the administration expect to respond to the funding issues related specifically to Allegheny County reassessments?
Oh, reassessments, you meaning taxing?
Yeah.
Taxing. Again, those are, I thought you said assessments. I'm like, what's going on with their assessments? Again, those are discussions that are happening at the governor's office level because, and that's a great question because as we talk about funding for schools, we have to look at the taxing implications also, and that is baked into the proposal from the Basic Ed Funding Commission in regards to taxing of our locals.
I'm going to sneak in one more. In what ways does PDE provide opportunities for private industry or local businesses to partner with secondary schools to address workforce needs in their community directly?
Wow. This, again, another phenomenal question. This leads me into my head and heart alignment of why I'm in this position. Carefully and being sensitive to time, I'm going to give you a quick story. One of the stories that I when I met with at the time Governor-elect Shapiro in regards to taking on this position, and that example is Johnstown. And the superintendent in Johnstown, that's Dr. Amy Arcurio, who a phenomenal leader. She's a phenomenal leader. I have all of these accolades behind my name. Trust me, it's Amy Arcurio. Her leadership is phenomenal. And I asked a question. I was coming back from vacation and I headed through Johnstown and I saw Lockheed Martin in a dollar store. And then the school district. Johnstown does not have a lot going on this side. Now, when you cross over to the other side of the turnpike, there's some things going on with business and industry. And I said, Dr. Curio, do your students have access to Lockheed Martin? And she said, we're working on it. That was part of the discussions I've had with businesses and philanthropists in regards to how we can become closer as one. One, and I tried to be cognizant of it today, we are a whole different territory of acronyms. Two, the business sector, that's a whole nother level of acronyms, and we have to get the common sense solutions. One of the greatest examples, and this road leads back to Berks County. We know that there's great strength when you have a community that works. A walk-to-work community, a community that can get to the job. So the businesses have been very open to being able to train adult learners and train young learners for opportunities of the future. Think of it this way, and these are conversations that Amy and I had. A young person, first of all, you're doing internships. Out in Erie, Pennsylvania, there are internships where the students are being paid during the internship and the companies are waiting for them on the stage of graduation, like, come work for us. very similar, where students are stepping out of our K-12 education space and into positions that's perhaps $60,000 to $85,000. 60 or 70 or 80 or 85 for mostly all young learners in the Commonwealth changes their trajectory, changes and breaks the opportunity to break the cycles of poverty. 70,000 in Philadelphia, way over the poverty line. 70,000 in Erie, tremendously past the poverty line. 70,000 in Johnstown, you really have kicked down the doors of systemic poverty. So yes, those conversations are active. The governor has a task force, and I sit on that task force where we're working with businesses. I'm working with our superintendents in regards to opening the doors. And it doesn't necessarily, and this is my educator, hat. It doesn't have to start with curriculum. That's a whole process. It starts with engagement. It starts with activity, and then internships. And we can get to curriculum to be able to make it sustainable for future years, but that should not be the barrier that has us stop and close the door.
We'd like to thank Secretary Mumin for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
PCN and Pennsylvania Press Club. In closing, we want to thank you for joining us. Our next luncheon is Monday, May 13th. Our guest will be Senator Scott Martin, Senate Appropriations Committee Chair. For scheduling information, you can visit our website, papressclub.org.